Syrian refugees.
A story. Syria is in the Middle East and is part of the southwestern Asia. Syria has a coastline along the eastern Mediterranean Sea just below Turkey. With Turkey to its north, Lebanon is to the west, Israel to the southwest, Jordan to the south, and Iraq to the east. The conflict began with protesters simply wanting democracy and greater freedom, but once government forced open fire on peaceful demonstrations, people demanded that President Assad resign. President Assad refused to step down, and as the violence worsened, he offered to change some things about the way the country was run, but the protesters didn't believe him. Although there are many rebels, President Assad also has quite a lot of people in Syria that still support him and his government.
The war in Syria shows no sign of ending, which becomes a push factor, so people are continuing to flee and are now losing hope that they can return. Many refugees are escaping as there is not enough international aid to help them in the region. An example of a pull factor for refugees is a portrayal of a welcoming Europe in television and social media.
Most refugees are fleeing on foot as well as by boat. Although many are choosing to flee, not everyone makes it.
With the end goal being Germany, it takes the refugees approximately 29 days to make the trip. An estimated 9 million refugees have fled the country since March 2011. Over 3 million have fled to Syria's immediate neighboring countries, such as Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq.
Government forces opened fire on peaceful demonstrations when people were demanding that President Assad resign. When President Assad refused to step down, the rebels started their fight against the government, sparking a civil war.
These are the countries offering to help the government or the refugees. Russia has begun launching airstrikes against rebels and calling them terrorists. America is supporting Syria's main opposition alliance, the National Coalition, and provides limited military assistance to moderate rebels. Saudi Arabia provides military and financial assistance to several rebel groups in Syria. Iran has sent commanders to help Syrian forces against the rebels. And Canada has been working on peacekeeping missions and supporting America with fighter planes.
Here are some steps to solve the conflict according to World Vision. Arm the Syrian opposition and remove the Assad regime with military force. Create a no-fly zone and a safe area in Syria's north. Let Syrians return there, receive aid, and rebuild while the conflict dies down. Accept that Assad is a necessary evil and back him so parts of Syria stay together. Split the country into 4 different districts: Kurdish, ISIS, other opposition, and regime, and hope they eventually stop fighting. And finally, keep doing what the countries are doing, drone and airstrikes against ISIS.
European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker says pushing boats from piers, setting fire to refugee camps, or turning a blind eye to poor and helpless people. That is not Europe. The Europe I want to live in is illustrated by those who are helping. The Europe that I don't want to live in is the one that is refusing to those who are in need. The president of Hungary counter-stated that he prefers to see refugees and asylum seekers bypass Hungary on their journey west. He built a barbed wire fence along Hungary's entire border with Serbia and just last week introduced a new law making any fence crossing a criminal offense. Many other countries in Europe are also following Hungary.
The refugees are affecting the world's economy as surrounding countries and other countries offering asylum have to deal with the strain of taking in refugees and having to support them, for example with healthcare, housing, food, security, and teaching them the language.
The picture of the 3-year-old boy whose body washed ashore on the beach in Turkey has been used hundreds of times by media outlets around the world. The picture is used as propaganda because it forces many to face an issue that we would otherwise not be entirely aware of. When the picture was released, it was shared hundreds of times to bring awareness to the refugees and bring us to ask more questions and find out more. Although we are not hearing many stories from refugees, the stories we are hearing are full of horror and death, but they don't tell us everything, leaving us to make assumptions which results in spread of rumors, lies, and fears. ISIS themselves are using this picture in propaganda against mostly other children still in Syria, using fear as a way to control them by saying that this will happen to them if they don't live by their rules.